We'll be starting our health tech competition in just a moment. If people could take their seats, if we could start people, I hate to interrupt good conversations. Look at all that good networking that's happening. If you could come closer and please take your seats. We have lots of seats over here. Again, no one listens.
Let's do it. It's a backup. Always have.
Good morning.
Always have a backup when you do something.
If we please have everyone sit down for the health tech competition. Come closer. Have a seat. You're going to be on your feet all day. Now's your chance to rest. We're getting there. We'll be starting in about 15 seconds.
That seems pretty precise.
This is offline.
Okay, there she is.
Interesting.
Right?
Wonderful, amazing. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our health tech competition, Pitch 1. I'd like to introduce Nancy Brown, CEO of the American Heart Association, to have some opening remarks to kick us off. Nancy?
Thank you, Jeff. Welcome to everyone. As Jeff said, I'm Nancy Brown, CEO of the American Heart Association, and it's such an honor to be able to kick off this health tech competition. This is the 6th year we've had this competition at Scientific Session, and every year it gets better. This is brought to you by our Center for Health Technology and Innovation. And after a number of applications this year, an esteemed panel of AHA volunteers, as well as representatives of our colleagues from the Laerdal Million Lives Fund, as well as staff, selected 5 finalists. These 5 finalists are Flow Medical, HEKAHEART, Powerful Medical, Proton Intelligence, and Rheotech. Congratulations to all of the finalists. We're so proud to have you all here. Over the next 2 days, the finalists will be showcasing their science-based programs and initiatives to our esteemed judges here. We're so thankful to having this great group of judges. We will have one session focused on business model and impact, and the other on the science behind the solutions. And tomorrow at 4:15, please be here. We will announce all of the winners. So thank you so much. I turn you now back to Jeff, but really to the hands of these great judges. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Okay, so I'm going to run through how this works, and then we're going to introduce our judges, and then we're going to have a special treat from some of our past winners, and then we're going to get to the good stuff. So, we've all watched Shark Tank. We've all seen a lot of pitch competitions. When they're live, the companies never really have enough time to get through everything that's good about them. So we have a unique model, as Nancy mentioned. Today we'll be covering the business and technology, and in some ways the impact of our contestants. And then tomorrow we'll come back. Some of the judges will change over, and we'll judge them on their science, evidence, and hopefully their adherence to AHA guidelines. So 2 pitches, 7 minutes each for the pitch, 7 minutes question and answering. That's where the real fun happens. I am maniacal about keeping everyone on the clock, so I will cut all of you off. You know that, those of you who've been through this before. So I'd love for our judges to introduce themselves. They have amazing credentials. I'm going to make them only say their name and their main affiliation. Where do you spend the most of your working hours, okay? We'll start with AJ, A for AJ.
AJ Blood, cardiologist at Brigham and Women's Hospital.
Bob Harrington, Weil, Cornell Medicine.
Joe Wu, Stanford University.
It's really fast.
Jeff Trost, Million Lives Fund.
Lee Schwamm, Yale.
Rashmi Shah, Meta.
Domenico Cianflone, Raffaele, University Hospital, Milan, Italy.
And Devin Breen with GE Healthcare.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you guys all kept it in the time limit. It's a good example. Yeah, big round of applause for our judges, please. Thank you. All right, so now our special treat. Folks often wonder what happens to companies after they're on this stage and they receive the awards. So we had a little request for a Where Are They Now? And we have videos from our 2 most recent winners, and I would love for us to show those now. How do I get out of the way?
Hello everyone, my name is Antonelli, founder and CEO of RCE. We are an AI MedTech company that has developed a groundbreaking wrist-worn technology that can detect early stages of heart attacks. We leverage advanced infrared techniques and machine learning to analyze signals through the skin. Now, time is muscle and every minute counts. And while it takes hours to diagnose heart attacks in the hospitals today, we can do the same within minutes. In 2023, we were honored to win the Health Tech Competition Award, and the support was phenomenal. This gave us momentum with strategic partnerships and accelerated our preclinical and regulatory efforts. Bringing our product to market is crucial, and the support and the recognition from the AHA has been invaluable. RCE will be showcasing some of our latest and greatest updates at the 2024 conference in Chicago on November 18th. We look forward to seeing you there.
Standing, RCE, Sandra. And now Ava.
What's up, everybody? Yair Saperstein here, CEO and co-founder of AVO, otherwise known as AVO MD. We were the winners of the Health Tech competition in 2022, and since that time have seen explosive growth. AVO is a software suite of clinical AI tools. As one example of what you could do as a primary care doc, you come into the office, you want to have a look back on your patients as an automatic chart summarizer, chart review that also knows the guidelines, compares your patient data to the guidelines across disease states, including, of course, cardiology, heart failure, AFib, and so on, and then can give you a care guide recommendation of what you actually need to do, pre-draft your notes, pre-penned orders, and the like. So we are very honored to win in 2022 as a way of bringing evidence into the workflow in a way that can reduce burnout and improve the ability to give better patient care. We really thank the AHA for the platform and the ability to compete, and of course for the win, and good luck to all of the participants here.
Outstanding. Round of applause for our past winners. They're around here somewhere, I'm sure. And I do want to comment, Yair was 7 seconds over, and I was tempted to cut it, but we let him ride. So one last thing before we call up our first esteemed company. Some of you will remember I do this every year, but my kids don't believe that I travel for work. They think I just travel for fun. So if I could get a big hi Milo from everybody before we start. Hi Milo. More than that, come on, it's my son. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. Excellent. So does everybody know what we're doing? Contestants, you ready? Remember, the clicker, you got to point at the computer over there, and there is quite a gap behind here, so no one fall off. We have lots of doctors, but so it looks like Rheotech is first. Can I call Rheotech? It's for you. 7 minutes.
Hello, I'm Paul Connors, President and Chief Operating Officer here at Rheotech. Excited to talk to you guys today. Let's dive in. So what's the problem? The problem right now is that up to 50% of the injury from an acute MI is presently untreated. And this is due to a well-documented phenomenon known as reperfusion injury. This is unintentional injury due to the abrupt restoration of blood flow to previously ischemic heart tissue as part of normal standard of care intervention for acute MI patients. This results in paradoxical damage of otherwise salvageable cardiac tissue. Uncontrolled changes in blood and oxygen levels, they kick off a molecular cascade of events that results in damage and ultimately cellular death to tissue that should otherwise be salvageable. And at present, there are not many therapeutic options, and the ones that exist have varied clinical benefit. So the current treatment of MI is focused on opening the occlusion as quickly as possible. We've gotten really good at that. However, despite our proficiency, morbidity and mortality remain high. 10% of patients with an acute MI die during their initial hospitalization, up to 30% die within 30 days, and about a quarter of patients are left with debilitating congestive heart failure. The treatment itself is also shown to be inducing of injury. Animal studies have demonstrated that up to 50%, almost half of the final infarct size is attributed to the intervention. And we know this is associated with all-cause mortality and hospitalization. So what's the solution? The solution, we believe, is just as frostbitten tissue can be salvaged with gradual rewarming, Ischemic tissue can be salvaged with gradual reoxygenation. We do this by taking over local circulatory control, by isolating the tissue's blood supply from systemic circulation and gradually reoxygenating ischemic tissue and gradually reintroducing normal blood flow. How we do this is with the Reox reperfusion system. This is a 3-part system that consists of a blood pump, a disposable cartridge, and a disposable reperfusion catheter. In short, we use the patient's own blood to reperfuse their heart post-MI in a controlled manner. And when we do this by deploying the cardiac catheter to the site of the occlusion, then angioplasty takes place through our catheter with the normal angioplasty balloon, at which point the Reox reperfusion system takes over circulation of that formerly infarcted vessel. The system highlights are that we use techniques familiar with the cardiologist, interventional cardiologists. We use the patient's own blood. We have a minimal impact on that critical metric, door to balloon time, and we're compatible with existing PCI suite workflows. So what's our value proposition? Well, better outcomes leading to decreased morbidity, mortality, and cost. Our co-founder, Dr. Neil Thomas, who will be talking tomorrow, is a cardiothoracic surgeon. He's been practicing our oxygen therapy, and he applied that to patients needing emergent CABG for acute MI. He's found that this has been safe and protective. He recently presented a retrospective study in over 100 patients at STS in Miami this year, showed that we could potentially save an additional 33 out of 100 lives using the Rheotech oxygen protocol in open heart patients, and also demonstrated reduced cardiogenic shock mortality, lower admission for heart failure, and lower proportion of patients requiring ICDs and defibrillators. So building on that, we want to translate that to the PCI suite, and that's what our goal is. In doing that, we're going to be targeting the sickest patients possible. These are the patients with cardiogenic shock, pre-shock or in shock. This is about 10% of the patient population. Mortality rates of 40%, 20% plus readmission rates, treatments costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. These are patients who are highly sensitive to reperfusion injury, and we believe that this will not only give us a signal that the FDA will receive well, but also allow us to potentially save lives that otherwise would be lost. And this is why we're doing this. So let's talk about the market a little bit. This is a massive market, $750 million just for the cardiogenic shock in the US alone. This market expands up to $24 billion for the total domestic ischemia market, $10 billion more if we go international. We plan on expanding to all acute MI cases requiring PCI. Again, we have that just cardiogenic shock indication first, and this has the potential to be a platform technology with treating other systems that benefit from reperfusion injury interjection, things like organ transplantation, limb ischemia, stroke. These are all future generations that we could be a platform for. How are we going to get there, right? The roadmap regulatory-wise determines everything. This is going to be a modular PMA. This is going to be for controlled reperfusion therapy for patients in pre-shock or shock. We plan on filing that Q1 27. We believe that our device and our data is compelling for breakthrough designation. We're going to apply for that and take advantage of that program if we're accepted. And our team has a lot of experience successfully navigating the complicated regulatory environment, including PMA. This is a difficult path to go down, but it provides value, it provides protection, and it provides a whole bunch more for our company as opposed to de novo. So let's talk a little bit about our business model. This is a recurring consumables play, so consumables are going to drive our revenue. Our device cost of goods, we're about $1,000. Our selling price is $15,000. We can happy to elaborate in questions how we arrived at those numbers, but our goal for target gross margins is greater than 90%. There's cushion built in that now, and we believe we have a defendable selling price. Our manufacturing strategy is going to be using US-based contract manufacturers that we already have relationships with. We know them well, we trust them, we're going to be utilizing them, and we're going to control the design and the QMS. And our initial go-to-market strategy is direct sales. The reason for this is we know our product the best. Getting people to adopt new technology is always challenging. We want to make sure that early end users have support, have all the assistance that they could possibly need to facilitate the adoption and growth of our product. Eventually that will probably change as we continue to grow. And talk a little bit about funding and timeline. Right now we're in phase 1, wrapping up the end of that. We had a $2 million series seed round. We raised a total of about maybe $700,000 of that. We've used it judiciously to get us through our translational animal studies. And we've managed with that to also build and test our working prototypes, do our proofs of concept animal studies. We've laid down foundational IP. We have 10 patents, all wholly owned by Rheotech. And we have assembled a proven leadership team with actual exit experience. assuming that we can get breakthrough designation, that's well received, we'll launch a Series A early next year, which for $10 million should take us all the way through PMA submission and potentially beyond. Thanks for your time.
Nice, nice. Very good. 2 seconds left on the clock. How many folks in the audience are actually entrepreneurs or have an innovative company? Amazing. How many of you have pitched in front of a crowd like this? It's awful, isn't it? So another round of applause. 7 minutes on the clock. Judges, who's first? Jeff?
Paul, you talked about a modular PMA approach. Would love you to expand on that a bit.
Sure.
And can you summarize your FDA discussions to date? Any pre-sub discussions or confirmation that that's the appropriate pathway for your technology?
Great question. So right now, just elaborating on the modular PMA, because we have that 3-component system, the blood pump, then the cardiac catheter, and the disposable cartridge. The pump itself could be 510K'd with existing predicates. It's kind of like similar to a microplegia pump. There's discussion amongst our regulatory consultants about bringing that to the FDA, getting that kind of de-risked in their eyes, and then putting the other components as well. We have not talked to the FDA yet about that, so this is all just speculation based on our consultants. We've been talking with Janice Hogan, as I'm sure most people have ended up talking with at some point, and so far that looks favorable. With regards to our FDA discussions, we have not had those yet. We were waiting to complete this translational animal study to get us that data to then go to the FDA. We know that we won't have that device there yet, but we'll have something that'll be functionally equivalent soon.
Dr. Harrington, I think you were next.
So I want to build on the FDA question. I'm adding this up. It looks like you have $12 million. How big a clinical trial do you think you can support with the monies that you'll have?
So, great question. We've been talking with a variety of people about that. So, our clinical trial has the benefit of potentially being able to piggyback on existing procedures, which would lower the cost of patient enrollment. In addition, we have, sorry for the reverb. In addition, we have the potential to do some, okay.
It's me.
In addition, we have the potential to do retrospective controls. Now, this hasn't been confirmed, but this can keep costs down as well. Given the signal that we've seen so far, our statisticians have calculated that we could do this with fewer than 80 patients, maybe as low as 50, so that should control cost. Again, though, it depends on enrollment, it depends on a lot of other factors. 10 million is in our we've modeled it out to have some cushion, but things tend to run over. So,
Dr. Blood and then Dr. Wu.
Sorry. Yeah. You mentioned a lot of this is based on a slow reintroduction of blood flow past the infarcted area. How much time does this add to a case? What does this look like for cath lab flow and procedural volume, and how does that implicate what you're thinking about doing?
Sure. As of right now, in terms of altering the door-to-balloon metric, it's looking like a couple minutes just to place the central lines. Right now, we're doing this over 30 minutes post-angioplasty, and so there are other companies doing various things at different timeframes. Ours is right now 30 minutes. That's what we've had success with and seen success. So that should, then you can plug that in. Usually it takes about 30 minutes to unwind a PCI suite anyways, so hopefully it can be in that time not too negatively impactful of the workflows.
So can you give us more granularity on how your device works? I mean, you open up the artery, you take out the blood, put it in the device, and put the blood back in. But what exactly is being exchanged, and how is it improving the myocardial tissues?
Sure. So what we're doing leading up to that balloon angioplasty is they're prepping the patient, getting line access, et cetera. They're putting in additional central access. So we're priming our pump with venous blood. What we're doing is we're taking venous blood, low oxygen tension venous blood, and we're pulling that in the system, diluting it with a little bit of heparinized saline, and then we're giving that back in. So we're using low oxygen patient venous blood to perfuse that heart. And we're giving them flow based on pressure. We have pressure sensors and everything to make sure that we maintain appropriate coronary perfusion pressures. But that's how that's being conducted. So we're using patient venous blood to actually reperfuse their heart, and then we ramp up. It's a mix of venous and arterial blood, and we ramp that up over a period of time, over that 30 minutes, from 100% venous to 100% arterial. And then we end at 100% arterial, and that's when natural native reperfusion takes place.
Excellent. Wonderful answers, wonderful questions. Anyone? Dr. Schwamm?
This is the business pitch, right? Not the science pitch. So I'm going to suppress all my science questions. I think that the challenge here is going to be accumulating compelling enough evidence for people to be convinced that this is that the ROI exists for clinical outcomes and for the extra time in the lab. And so I think it's, even if the p-value would support a study of 50 patients, I think that's way too optimistic. And I think you're going to need, I would guess, multi-center trial, because there's so many operator-specific and workflow-specific aspects to this. So you're targeting a pretty small sub-segment of the potentially addressable market. And I'm kind of echoing Bob's question. How are you going to get a sufficient body of evidence to convince a community that they should start now spending money and training on this procedure before you have demonstrated benefit in humans? So how are you going to address that problem?
Sure. So to make sure I understand, one, how are we going to more? This is more on the clinical trial side focused as opposed to the animal side focused. You'll see the animal stuff tomorrow. You'll get to scratch your itch. Oh, it's a smaller subset of the population, but it's a population that's still very present nonetheless. Northwestern here in Chicago has about 400 shock code activations, frequently monthly. About 1,000 of these cases per year go through. Lake Forest Hospital, like a smaller community hospital, subset about 250 of these. Patient enrollment, getting those numbers through multi-center trials, we believe that's obtainable. I think, realistically, you're right. We're being optimistic. We're trying to be conservative in our projections, but we also probably have a bit of optimism bias. The reality is as we get closer along and we start to see how our data looks, we'll have to get the data and the number of patients enrolled to really facilitate adoption and demonstrate that ROI. Now, I think our animal data will help justify that, but in humans, that's going to be the next challenge, and we'll know more as we get there.
Right on the mark again. Very well done. Thank you so much. Round of applause. Thank you. Well done. All right, judges. Now it's the challenge is for you to figure out how to use our electronic form. How do we feel? Is everyone entering in their scores? We're moving ahead. Right? Sure. That's the clicker. You pointed over there? That's perfect. How are we feeling, judges? Already done. So efficient. This is what technology leads to our lives. I love it. Relax. Take a breather. We feeling? Nope, we're not feeling good. Wouldn't be a technology conference if something technological didn't work. We're going to go? Okay.
I just
All
want to
right.
make sure the clicker's working.
Point it that way. You got to point it toward the
But I think you
computer.
want the other. Okay. All right. I give you Proton Intelligence.
Okay, all right, sorry. So I'm Proton Intelligence. We are working on a continuous potassium monitor to make what we believe is invisible today, potassium, into something visible and transformative for cardiorenal care. So I'm Steve Pham. I'm a practicing emergency medicine physician, clinical assistant professor at UCSF, and I have a significant history with medical devices. I teach medical devices at San Francisco. I have run M&A at Roivant. I consult for biopharma about medical devices, and at Echo, I built these stethoscopes here. The problem, as I see it, especially from the emergency department viewpoint, is that these patients oftentimes with hypertension, heart failure, kidney disease, they come into my emergency department on great therapeutics. They're on RASIs, MRAs, the best-in-class drugs to halt progression of these diseases. But they still come to my emergency department. And that's because they sometimes fall off a cliff with critical dyskalemias and sometimes also crash dialysis, sudden cardiac death. And I believe the problem to this is that the potassium part is not visible. We're not aware, we're not following up. And our guidelines know this, actually. So 3 out of 4 of the AHA, ACC, and HRS guidelines for heart failure show that you have to check potassium or electrolytes. We also have strong KOL guidelines around this. Follow up in 2 weeks. And yet, if you look at what happens, 2 weeks later, less than 17% of our patients actually end up getting a potassium checked. So what? Does fear of that lead to anything? I'm here to say, hell yes. One is that actually a lot of our patients, once they become hyperkalemic, are significantly deprescribed. That's 30%, that's your red bar there, at 6 months are deprescribed off of life-prolonging drugs. And 30% more are underprescribed. The doses are reduced. And that leads to suffering. because if you look at the morbidity that follows on total composite cardiorenal outcomes, you double the amount when you are below the optimal dose. So hopefully, if there's one thing you take away from this presentation today, it's that fear of potassium is the barrier to optimal cardiorenal care. And I believe that potassium today is like detecting PVCs before we had ambulatory EKG monitors. So what would you do differently if you could test for potassium in a way that you could trust? What would you do differently if you could remotely detect potassium instead of asking patients to come in to Quest Diagnostics? What would you do differently if you could discover dyskalemia in real time? And I think if you ask those questions, you're probably thinking today, we're flying blind. So the solution is, for us, a continuous potassium monitor, and it acts like a CGM. So you have a sensor that goes into the ISF layer, and it's detecting potassium in real time. This is how you put it in. There's an applicator with a retractable needle. That needle implants the sensor under the skin into the ISF, just like a CGM, relatively painless, and now you have a wearable real-time potassium monitor. So this is the data that you could get. This is not what we intend to show to doctors or patients, because it might scare people. But healthy humans, we expect to see flatline. In a dialysis, you'll see a wild dynamic swing in the potassium. And in the patients that you might be actively diuresing, you might see it cross through the danger threshold of 3, 3.5, even 4. So the value proposition is that we deliver 3 main differences to standard of care right now. One is accessibility. Set it and forget it. You no longer need to go check with Quest Diagnostics. We can send, just like a Zio patch, to your patient's home. It's reliable. We do not have pseudo-hyperkalemia as a spurious confounder. You can trust our tests. And there's no repeat testing needed because there's no hemolysis as an issue. And it's actionable. How do we know this? Because we all know what to do with hyper and hypokalemia, right? So we're just presenting data that you should be more aware of. So in one particular use case for heart failure GDMT, this is from a publication Story Health put out on a narrative for remote management. The only barrier they had to remote management, the only physical one, was checking potassium. And in a 2-month program, they had upwards of 5 dose titrations that required some form of lab testing. So we're talking 5 potassium checks. 5 times you got to ask your patients to go get their potassium checked in 6 weeks. 6 to 8 weeks. That would drive me crazy. So, and their leadership basically told us, this is powerful. If I could get my patient in rural areas not to have to drive more than an hour to get that lab test during our protocol, this would transform their care. So our business model is to start with CKD patients. About 1.2 million of them get severe hyperkalemia as defined at 5.5 threshold a year. We estimate through economic models about $4,000 saved by optimizing RASIs. And this is just RASIs. I'm not even including MRAs, aldosterone synthase inhibitors. That basically nets out at 4.6 billion saved. And you spend with us instead $600 per member per month times 2 to get you about 1.4 billion in cost to save 4.6 billion in this population. Market growth. So essentially, this is our first indication. Second indication is intercepting acute events. Prevent those hospitalizations, prevent those ED visits. That's 5 billion. 12 billion on top of that if you wanted to tightly control hyperkalemia on a chronic basis. And, sorry. So why is it now that it's the right time? Because there are now patient aggregators out there who are incentive aligned for the first time ever to really bend the cost curve on their patients. These are your value-based care companies, one of which HEKAHEART is going to present to you later today, who are actually caring, and they actually have levers to pull against nephrology, cardiology, and primary care practices to get us that data for CPT codes and eventually to get payer and self-insured employer reimbursement. And we have avenues into pharma. So we land and expand CKD, heart failure, hypertension, and then eventually we also have data on sodium, and we're going to expand into other electrolytes. So to date, this is our fundraising journey, 5 million pre-seed. Sorry.
Right. Nice job.
Yeah.
Well done. Sorry, we were out of time. He was out of time. Thank you so much. Judges, who's first? Dr. Harrington.
So, great story. And I have two questions for you. Who do you see as competition? I've seen EKGs can now pick up potassium abnormalities using AI. And then the second question is, you list a lot of other electrolytes, but the big market here is glucose. Is this compatible with continuous glucose monitoring?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. So first, I can tell a long story about potassium. I actually have that in the deck tomorrow. So in fact, at my time at ECHO, we evaluated hyperkalemia algorithms, and I can tell you from my personal experience, they don't work. What they do is they basically classify your potassium range, and not that accurately. In fact, some of these devices out there are throwing about greater than 50% false positive. So that's first thing. And it's because the stabilization of the cardiac membrane due to potassium is a qualitative, at this time, waveform analysis, right? It's not actually a quantitative based on what your potassium value is. And sorry, the second question was?
Compatible with glucose monitoring.
Yes, it is, yes. Our whole team built CGM many times over before this happened, and the head of our advisory board is the godfather he built Medtronic's CGMs. Yeah, so yeah, we have that as a plan.
Wonderful. If I could ask our timekeeper to put 5 minutes on the clock and get it running. So I don't know if it's going to be 100% on 7 minutes. Judges, Dr. Schwamm.
Yeah, great presentation, actually. Very clear, addressable market. Are you aiming this primarily as a payer strategy or a value-based care strategy? Because it's a little less clear how you enter the fee-for-service market with this.
Yeah, so first we have to start with value-based care because of the aggregation aspect. We are going to be able to show, and we've already had very highly qualified discussions with Monogram, Interwell, all your top value-based care companies on the renal side and on the cardiology side with Story Ventricle and HEKA. And what we've discovered is that they actually have willingness to run actual studies that are quite similar to the CardioMEMS Champion study is the goal, is to work closely with them, and that will unlock the CPT code. Once we get that, it becomes a fee-for-service, yes.
And then related question, I think there's been a lot of crossover into the wellness space. A lot of healthy individuals optimizing performance with CGMs for, marathon training, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Any thought about a wellness crossover?
We get a lot of inbounds about that, just like CGM did a decade ago. Yes, we have a lot of thoughts about that. In fact, we are doing, in this next upcoming year, multiple exercise physiology studies. I think there will be some challenges. During peak exercise, there's a lot of data to show that serum potassium will elevate dramatically and could scare a lot of people. But on the flip side, we know that post-exercise mortality, when you actually have dyskalemia, is high, and we believe that that's a significant source of sudden cardiac death. So I'm super excited about that because I used to get at Cornell ED all the New York Marathon runners collapsing. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of application.
I mean, it's interesting. Oh, go ahead. I'll defer to my colleague from South Carolina.
Okay. The first part of the question was already addressed. Are you figuring, or did you do any market study on a B2C approach following this line rather than B2B, purely B2B?
Yeah. So we have, we've done early reach out to potential patients who might be interested in this, and we've actually also done mock-ups of our UI UX to see if it would transform their care. But until we get to a point where we can do a good sham study, I'm not trusting any of it. So I think yes, the answer is yes, we've done some work, but that's a year 5 to year 10 vision, I think, to get to direct to consumer. Yeah.
Dr. Wu?
Yeah, great talk. Can you tell us a little bit about your IP? For example, what's preventing another company from coming up with something similar at a lower cost and just compete with you?
Yeah. I'll tell you that, and then I'll give you some anecdotes. So that's in on my deck tomorrow, actually. So strong IP protection because the competitors, Dexcom and Abbott and Medtronic, all have been working on what we're doing for quite a while. The reason they have not been able to reach this is because they are anchored in enzyme-based diagnostics. So they use an enzyme that processes glucose and generates a current. We instead use basically voltage-gated ion channels that generate a voltage. It's a completely different IP portfolio, and it's a completely different chemistry that they cannot manufacture well. And then the qualitative thing I can tell you is that multiple competitors at Kidney Week about 2 weeks ago tried to lock us into a room to get us to reveal IP. So we know that this is a hot thing, and we know that nobody has this, and we've done, by now, I believe, 12 filings Some of them granted, most of them provisional around this.
Kidney Week. I love it. Dr. Blood.
Yeah, thanks. Great talk. The other piece, especially in looking at labs for GDMT, focusing on the heart failure use case, creatinine, kidney function monitoring, especially in a CKD population, is that somewhere in the?
So that's going to be a little difficult for us to reach. So as I was saying, so creatinine is a large molecule, right? And maybe an aptamer, other kinds of sensors could do it, but not what we're doing. So yes, that we're not the one-stop shop. In fact, I think the final solution has to be EKG. Basically, you have to have an EKG, a potassium monitor, and some form or easy way to check not just serum creatinine, but also urine creatinine. So yeah, we'll get there. Somebody's going to do it, but we can't touch creatinine.
Judges, other questions? All right. Nice job. Round of applause, please.
If only I could have put 43 seconds at the end of my presentation.
Well done. Well done. You can put that there. Okay. How's everyone doing? 2 companies down. We still excited and interested? Doesn't sound like. Anyway, Powerful Medical, please. This is for you. This is for you. That's forward. That's back.
That's forward.
That's forward.
Okay. That's pretty interesting. It's the same. Hi, everyone. Sorry for that.
Welcome up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Martin, and I'm a co-founder and CEO of Powerful Medical. I came here today to speak about PM Cardio, our AI-powered cardiovascular diagnostics platform. So PM Cardio is AI that reads ECGs, and it was trained on millions of historical outcomes. In Europe, it is already certified as a Class 2B medical device to diagnose up to 39 different conditions from a standard 12-lead ECG, and also recommend treatment in accordance to the latest clinical practice guidelines. While the technology itself is quite complex, we managed to package it into a very easy-to-use, convenient mobile application for iOS and Android. So all you have to do is just take a picture of any ECG recording from any ECG device, and within seconds you can diagnose 39 cardiovascular conditions like a cardiologist with 30 years of experience, and also decide what to do next with the patient. So we launched this last year in Europe, and we have over 50,000 healthcare professionals registered on the platform, and they screened over 1 million ECGs to date. And we really see usage across the whole health system. So we have GPs and nurses using it in primary care. We have paramedics using it in emergency care, and cardiologists and other physicians using it in hospital, PCI sites, and emergency rooms. And at the beginning of this year, we actually came out with a new product that is intended to connect all of these and streamline patient care. And we really designed this for value-based care systems. We call it PM Cardio for Organizations. So on top of the diagnostic capabilities, PM Cardio for Organizations also has a web app that integrates within the EHRs and with digital ECG devices, and it comes with care coordination functionality such as notifications. At the moment, the #1 use case for PM Cardio is heart attack diagnostics, and heart attacks are the #1 cause of death worldwide. Unfortunately, still up to 50% of them get initially misdiagnosed, leading to delays in treatment. And as my cardiologist friends like to say, time is muscle, so the sooner you're able to treat the patient, the better his outcome will be. And unfortunately, due to these delays in diagnosis and treatment, 1 in 4 men and 1 in 3 women in the United States die within 5 years of getting a heart attack. The women actually score worse because they have less specific symptoms, complicating their heart attack diagnosis. And our answer to this is a module in PM Cardio. We call it the AI-powered chest pain pathway, and it's an AI trained on angiographic outcomes to detect acute occlusive heart attacks. We're achieving double the sensitivity compared to the current standard of care, and are able to see the heart attack in the ECG about 3 hours sooner than a human would. I know these are impressive numbers, but we've published them in the European Heart Journal, Digital Health, and for the last 12 months, this has been the most read study out there. Okay, so let me show you how we can use the mobile application to really onboard full health systems as paying customers. And I'll use the health system in Aalst as an example. So already last summer, we've seen quite significant usage over there in emergency care, the PCI hub, and in emergency rooms. We therefore onboarded them onto PM Cardio for Organizations, also integrated with pre-hospital ECGs from the ambulances and local emergency rooms, And now, anytime someone records a heart attack ECG in ALST, the correct team gets notified. And the results after 9 months of prospective implementations have really been impressive. So we improved care for over 3,000 chest pain patients. And we're particularly proud to have reduced the door-to-balloon time in the STEMI equivalent cohort by 13 hours. We were able to reduce false positive cath lab activations by about 70%. And in the 9 months, we didn't miss a single patient. These are very impressive results, and therefore, we intend to make PM cardio the standard of care for heart attack diagnostics. For this reason, we're currently running 42 independent clinical studies in hub-and-spoke health systems around the world on just the heart attack use case. And we'll publish all of those. They will have economic and clinical endpoints, so we can also go for reimbursement. And to date, we've already enrolled over 135,000 patients in them. On top of that, we're going to run Europe's 6th ever randomized control trial for an AI-powered clinical device funded by the EIC Accelerator. And all of these pilots, we hope to eventually convert into paying customers. In Europe, where this is already happening, in Europe, where this is already certified, this is already happening. Now, some of the results are already published, and they're super consistent. We consistently decrease false positive cath lab activations, double the sensitivity in detecting acute heart attacks, and also decrease the door-to-balloon time. Mount Sinai, SSM Health, and Washington State will actually present their results at AHA on Monday. We've also built a dedicated advisory board for the PM cardio chest pain pathway. So we have Tim Henry and Emmanuel Barbato, 2 gentlemen who used to be the former presidents of the bodies that write the heart attack guidelines. We have Suzanne Baron, a top-notch interventional cardiologist with a Harvard health economics degree, helping us quantify the cost savings, and Professor Stephen Smith, who runs the biggest ECG blog in the world, where every single post is about PM cardio. The sales pitch for the chest pain pathway is very simple. So we save money on false positive cath lab activations, we save money on decreasing the length of stay, and we're able to increase semi-billables. All in all, on a US PCI hub, we're able to save about $500,000 a year, and we will charge them about $75,000. Again, in Europe, this is already fully certified, and in the US, we expect the de novo FDA approval as early as next year. We've been in the process for quite some time now. On top of that, we're currently going for reimbursement, so after that happens, we will be able to further increase the price. Now, chest pain is not the final thing that we're doing. It's just the start. We really want to develop use cases for every level of care to give them an incentive to connect to the PM cardio platform. Next is heart failure, where we have an algorithm detecting the left ventricle systolic dysfunction from the ECG. This is now reimbursed in the United States. Going from there, we'll also do the arrhythmia pathway and structural heart disease.
And we're on time. Well done.
Thanks.
All right, if we could have 7 minutes on the clock and questions from our judges. Now, you don't get to keep going through slides.
You did it so.
Yeah. Dr. Harrington.
So really terrific presentation, potentially very important. You mentioned that there are 39 indications, and you've given us 2, MI and heart failure. Give us a few more. And as part of that, I want to know, do you have to have a full 12-lead EKG to put it into the system? Or a lot of patients have these 2, 3-lead EKG machines at home?
Yeah, so let's start with the leads. So at the moment, we're certified in Europe for 12-lead. This is also what our FDA submission is. But we have compatibility for 6, 3, 2, and 1, obviously not for all diagnoses. As for the other 39 diagnoses beside the heart attacks and the heart failure, we have arrhythmias, heart blocks, infarctions, ectopies, and hypertrophies on there as well.
Thank you.
Judges?
Just a minor comment. I think if you're talking to the crowd of cardiologists, you probably want to show an EKG example of what the computer interprets, an example of what your AI algorithm is able to say, this is something else much earlier. Otherwise, it's hard for us to visualize what's going on when you say you can interpret it better.
You will see that tomorrow in the scientific section. We have comparisons. So, yeah.
Dr. Schwamm?
Yeah, it's a slightly related question. is the algorithm picking up features that we currently don't associate with early myocardial injury, and therefore it is essentially outperforming, much like we've seen in digital pathology? Or is it more consistently recognizing features that we know are associated with injury, but we are failing to recognize because of the circumstances in which the EKG was obtained? And then the second question is, in these models, are you comparing the interpretation of the EKG to a person interpreting the EKG in that moment, or like best expert interpretation?
Yes, so let me start with the way the AI diagnoses the ECG. You're very correct. It doesn't look for STEMI and STEMI. We just fed it a set of angiogram outcome confirmed ECGs, learn. And we've actually developed a visualization tool which allows us to draw like a saliency map and show which parts it look at. And I'm not going to say that none of the humans are able to see it, because we know of humans who are able to see these tiny, tiny changes, Q waves, T waves, God knows what else. But this is really the purpose of the AI. Find what it wants to correlate with the angiographic confirmed outcome of heart attack or not heart attack. So this was the first question, and then the validation. So for all of the 135,000 patients that we've currently enrolled into the studies, we also get another 40 parameters, including the angiogram. So the ground truth is not a human. The ground truth is the ground truth. Either you can see there or you cannot see there.
So the ground truth is angiographic evidence of occlusion.
Exactly.
Stenosis, not elevated troponin and changes in ejection fraction.
Exactly. Well, so we tried an experiment once where we showed a massive ECG set to a group of very senior cardiologists. They couldn't really agree quite frequently, and I think this is the solution to it, right?
Yeah. Surprising. Dr. Shaw?
That was great, thank you. My impression is there's several companies in this space. What makes your technology differentiator better?
Well, we have by far the most amount of diagnosis certified, and we have by far the easiest access to the technology, so really we're able to show it to any healthcare professional in under 30 seconds. So this is really a huge differentiation, but I think we as a company really pride ourselves in doing things properly, so really going through robust clinical evidence, showing the cost effectiveness, going down the reimbursement pathways, and really ultimately wanting to change the standard of care. This is not a once and done thing for us. This is something that will take quite some time to pull over the finish line, but we feel like the heart attacks are the start to everything else for us. Because once we've given the PCI hubs a fantastic use case to connect to the PM Cardio platform, and there is where usually the cardiovascular patients tend to end up. So going from there, we can go into heart failure and connect more and more levels of care to the PM Cardio platform, whereas I feel like the other companies in the field are only doing the interpretation, not the full thing. Really, we're not only a diagnostic tool, we're also a care coordination tool, which intends to streamline patient flow. At the moment, we're in the PCI centers, but we're really trying to branch out and bring use cases for primary care, for outpatient, and so forth. So really, everyone doing something with the ECG, really down to a variable at the patient's home, eventually will be connected to the PM Cardio platform. This is the vision. Really take the patient from wherever the first ECG is, down to the last level of care, ideally beyond him being discharged and then monitored. We want to really streamline the whole patient flow.
Two quick questions. One, how many IPs have you patented? And second, what could prevent competition to gather clinical data and build another model competitive with yours?
Yes, so at the moment, I think we have 7 patent applications open. We have 1 granted that deals with the digitization, which is actually quite a significant component, because the digitization is not only a way that to distribute the technology, just taking pictures of ECGs. This is what allows us to really train on any input. Can be a PDF, can be a black and white ECG from 35 years ago from some archive. So IP protection is one of the defense mechanisms, but ultimately, another thing that we did for the heart attack use case, we were initially in the 510K pathway, because there is the GE device that already has some heart attack diagnostics. We changed that to a de novo submission because we also wanted to do the care coordination, everything else. But then ultimately, at the end of the day, the way you don't get overtaken by a competitor is you keep innovating, and we're very good at that.
Follow up, Dr. Schwamm?
Yeah.
We have 23 seconds.
Okay. Really quickly, talk a little bit more about the care coordination component of the platform, and are you integrated with major EHR vendors, or are you doing a standalone platform? Does everyone have to have the cardio app open at the same time? Like, how are you building the care management model?
So let me tell you how this works in Belgium. So in Belgium, it is integrated to a point where in the ambulance, they press the button on the ECG, and within 3 seconds, it's uploaded to our platform, and within another 10 seconds, we notify the person responsible for activating the cath lab. Now, if he clicks...
I'm afraid we're going to have to stop there. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No worries.
We can pick it up after. Thank you.
Well, okay. Now, I forgot that I didn't give you guys times to enter in your values last. Did we catch up? Are we all good? I hope those people got their scores, right? Everybody? We're good? Are we all ready to go? Judges, I need a thumbs up. This table over here. All right. HEKAHEART? Applause, please. Applause. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nolan Carthall. I am the founder of HEKAHEART, a virtual-first heart failure clinic delivering the most advanced heart failure care anywhere. Not going to lecture this crowd too much on the stats behind me. We know how big of a problem heart failure is. Prevalence is huge and rising. Costs, both in lives and dollars, is staggering. Access challenges remain abundant. And we know, despite clear evidence and consensus from organizations such as the AHA, there are methods to improve care, but adoption remains extraordinarily low. Delivering the gold standard of rapid high-intensity GDMT initiation and titration is nearly impossible outside of the most advanced care settings. As I've said, we know just getting patients on GDMT has astounding results in the number of lives and years of life that we can preserve, but rapid high-intensity GDMT initiation and titration only magnifies these impacts. Unfortunately, no existing solution today allows for that safe, rapid titration. That's what led us to start HEKAHEART. As I said, we are an integrated, virtual-first heart failure clinic. At our core, we're a scalable, AI-driven platform built exclusively around heart failure care with a focus on GDMT optimization. We're a closed-loop system, bringing dedicated remote clinicians as well as providers to actively manage care regimens. And we use multimodal data to develop dynamic risk scores that guide care and avoid high-risk events. We also remove biases through proactive patient identification using claims data and EMR scans that allow us to identify and assess and onboard patients. And finally, we are a performance-based platform. We want to contract on performance and risk sharing to make sure that incentives are aligned from top to bottom. How this works in practice, we're the only solution that fits seamlessly into current practice, fills care gaps, and maximizes outcomes and impacts. Patients are onboarded through the traditional means as well as through that proactive identification I mentioned a moment ago. They meet with a clinician very quickly, expectations are set, education is provided, and we develop out a dynamic risk score and assessment to start, a tailored bespoke GDMT plan based off of their current situation, both medical and financial, and we fulfill some RPM. From there, they engage in this rapid 6 to 8 week optimization cycle, where our clinicians are delivering updosing, initiating, updosing, downdosing GDMT, as well as diuretics. We're using RPM vitals to constantly manage and monitor volume, coordinating and executing lab analysis, as well as conducting virtual check-ins, and of course, updating that dynamic risk score as more and more information comes in. After they're optimized, we of course provide longitudinal support for the remainder of the time that we work with them. Local providers are aware and updated constantly. We know that is a necessity. On top of that, prior to a visit with a patient, we provide a tailored, bespoke progress report as well as recommended actions, so there's less time to review things, more time for action. And another differentiator key for us is that multimodal inputs. If you have information from PA pressures, from MEMS, from impedance data, point-of-care ultrasounds, blood volume analysis, we synthesize that and utilize it to our advantage. We drive better outcomes, patient engagement, and value. From preliminary results from some of our pilots, we see that we can improve initiation and optimization fast and safely. Adherence to the program is pretty astounding, and the downstream impacts expected are huge. Massive drops in mortality rates, massive drops in hospitalizations and ED visits. And the value generated from those is substantial as well. Every missed hospitalization is $20,000, an average cost savings of around $7,000 per patient. And we know that we don't just live in a value-based care world, we also enable top-line revenue through the form of reimbursement. Now, this allows us to deliver across all key stakeholders within heart failure care. Patients, better outcomes, improved quality of life, frictionless access to a heart failure specialist program. Clinicians, you can deliver heart failure specialist level care without any additional burden, in fact, reduced burden. Cardiology practices and health systems, two of our main focus areas I'll talk to a little bit more in a moment. For cardiology groups, this is a clear differentiator for you. It allows you to strengthen partnerships with affiliations, share in some of the savings that you generate, increase time for new patients, existing patients, and it maximizes your reimbursable time. Health systems, we know how big of a problem burnout is. We give you dedicated resources on your highest need patients. We actually deliver on outcomes-based population health, and of course, impact quality metrics and reduce penalties. Payers, simply put, you pay less. Now, we're focused right now on partnering with cardiology groups as well as health systems, but opportunity exists for expansion elsewhere. The reason that we're focusing here is because this is where we believe the biggest care gaps occur, and we have an opportunity to close those. As an example of 500 heart failure patients, we could generate over 1,000 hours of clinician time saved. That's from reducing administrative work, operational work, obviously care delivery as well. That's more time for higher need patients and new patients. Nearly $1 million in reimbursement and outpatient services, huge drops in readmission reductions, and an overall cost savings of $3.6 million for those patients. We want to share in the value and the savings that we generate. We want to deliver the optimal patient care to the highest need patients, reduce friction to our customers with no upfront costs, and like I said, we contract on outcomes, not usage, be that top-line revenue enablement, quality bonuses, payments linked to those, or ideally, upside risk sharing linked directly to those cost savings. We have so much conviction that we want to share in that risk with you. We're already making an impact, and we're positioned to transform cardiometabolic care. Tech platform and clinicians to deliver the gold standard of GDMT-led care. We're live with well-established AMCs with commitments from various others. We have a team built of and advised by industry leaders and clinical experts, and we are prepared to scale the advanced heart failure care and maximize the impacts for millions of heart failure patients.
Very well done. Mr. Clock person, thank you. 7 minutes and we'll start. Questions from our judges. Jeff?
Nolan, are you credentialed and licensed in all 50 states? And what other geographical barriers exist to deploy nationally?
Great question. Currently, we approach that opportunistically. So we are not across all 50 states. We are licensed and credentialized in the states in which we operate right now. However, in my previous life, I worked for a direct-to-patient company called Roe, led their cardiometabolic division. I oversaw a lot of the licensing work that was there and don't foresee that as a barrier. It has been historically, but frankly, with the infrastructure that's been put in place with digital health, it's no longer a significant barrier for expansion.
Dr. Harrington, then Dr. Schwamm.
So you've definitely tackled a big problem here. So 2 questions. The first is the language. Is it only available in English, or if not, how many other languages do you have available?
It's a fabulous question. Frankly, right now, it is only available in English, but with that being said, we understand that the pathways have to enable additional multi-language operations. And fortunately, we're at a point in time where AI utilization for that allows for that to go pretty quickly.
And the second, it might be just as quick, is choices of drugs within the GTM, within the Guideline Directed Medical Therapy framework. Everybody's plan is different. How do you adapt to that?
It's a great question. We follow the baseline guidelines, of course. That's what our protocols are fundamentally aligned against. That being said, you have to take into account, obviously, patient preference, but also the local clinician preference that we're taking in. We have recognized that from the jump. Inherently, our protocols are highly flexible. I know that some health systems like a 5.3 threshold for potassium, others like a 5.5. We've built that in perfectly to make sure that we slot that in depending on the needs. When it comes to the patient, a really tangible example there is if they can't afford an ARNI, we are not going to prescribe an ARNI knowing that it's not going to be adhered to. We will opt for an ACE or an ARB, knowing that there's some drop-off in outcomes, but we're going to optimize for adherence rather than the best drug.
Thank you. Dr. Schwamm.
Great. Nice presentation. Two-part question.
Sure.
The first is explaining a little bit more about your actual care model, like who's the workforce that is engaging with the patients? How do referring clinicians stay connected to what's happening with their patient? And then the second part of the question is, what's the billing, what's the reimbursement model? Is it all risk share and you're just getting paid for the service? Are there reimbursable events? And if there are, who's the submitting provider, your people or the health system?
Yep, great question. I'll answer that last component because it's quick. We enable RPM as well as chronic care management just by virtue of the services we deliver. We are not a fee-for-service company that is enabled for the local provider. The first question that you asked, which is around who is delivering our care, and so for us, it's ideally positioned for mid-levels, APPs, as well as clinical pharmacists, depending on the state and the ability that they have to actually prescribe and manage. There is heart failure specialist oversight, which is a differentiator for us. They're utilizing the inputs that we provide, be that from the BP cuff that we use for both orthostatic as well as regular blood pressure, incorporating any other additional information, of course, from labs, as well as PA pressures if it's available. So that's being delivered by our in-house clinicians, again, aligned with the protocols that we've developed, but the local system is comfortable with. The second question that was sandwiched in between there was, you'll have to forgive me.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So let me just follow that last
Sure.
answer to address this. So on the referring doc,
yes.
I'm outsourcing protocol adherence to you. I've got a patient who's in the next state over. You've got an APP licensed in that state, but I'm the billing provider, and I'm not licensed in Wyoming. How are you bridging that gap?
It's a great question. Frankly, right now, we haven't run into that challenge. I think health systems have been pretty smart around the way that they've tried to stay ahead of that. But with that being said, we would handle that one-off. If that is an impedance to delivering care, that's our top priority, so we'll play through that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Judges, any other questions?
Maybe one last question.
Sure.
It seems to me that you're providing a service model. What is your IP behind this? How do you prevent another company from coming out something similar?
No, it's a fabulous question. We very much are providing a service. That being said, we believe that our IP, our differentiators and our IP lie in a few different areas. One, we're incorporating additional information and we're building out algorithms around that. MEMS data, impedance data, blood volume analysis, point of care ultrasound. We're the only one that's bringing in all of that multimodal data. Secondly, the value-based care angle, I think, is something that is not relatively picked up and incorporated by many of the competition, as well as our ability to deliver a closed-loop system. I think that there's a lot of great outpatient monitoring and clinical decision support tools that enable this, but no one is really looking at this longitudinally, not just exclusively focused on GDMT, but looking at heart failure across the board.
Got about a minute left.
Well, very quick. Thank you.
Sure.
Nice presentation. How much of the work behind the scenes do you think is shared by innovative AI rather than rule-based mechanical reasoning?
Great question. We mix and match both. So a lot of this can be done with rule-based, right? I mean, if you really just wanted to protocolize the protocols, they're pretty rule-based, yes. But when you talk about dynamic risk scores, that's where you have to start layering in AI and ML. As an example, because you're incorporating not just standardized data across a number of different patients, some patients have PA pressures, most don't. So you have to be looking at the full list of what we can pull in, demographic, labs, et cetera, to actually utilize AI.
So what is the proportion? 50-50, 70-30, or what?
I'd love to talk about that in more detail.
Okay.
I don't necessarily want to announce that on the stage at this moment, so yes.
Okay, understood.
Uh-huh.
Thanks.
So I think I'm going to call it there. We have 9 seconds. Nice
Sounds
job.
good.
Round of applause for HEKAHEART.
Appreciate it. If anybody would like to talk more, please find me after the presentation.
I need the mic and the clicker, though. Thank you. Okay.
Good show and tell.
Welcoming up Flow Medical. And we have a special surprise after Flow Medical, so stick around.
Whoa.
There you go. Yep, to the right for it. Round of applause, please. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here today to tell you about Flow Medical and our next generation venous thromboembolism device. Before I get into what we are, I want to spend a moment and just talk about who we are. My partners are expert interventionalists who specialize in PE. Dr. Paul is an interventional cardiologist. Dr. Ahmed is an interventional radiologist. And despite that, they work very well together, running the VTE program at University of Chicago. I'm a serial MedTech entrepreneur, also at University of Chicago. For those of you that are in from out of town, welcome to our wonderful city. Globally, over 3 million people die every year of pulmonary embolism, or blood clots in the lungs. During this hour-and-a-half session alone, over 500 people will die. This is a widespread, deadly disease, and PE doesn't discriminate. It's the 3rd leading cause of cardiovascular death, the #1 cause of preventable in-hospital mortality, and it impacts everybody, old, young, black, white, or brown. It's young, healthy journalists like David Bloom. It impacts top athletes like Serena Williams. It's also one of the leading causes of maternal mortality in this country. Despite this being a big, deadly, and well-reimbursed disease, I appreciate the laughter. We're living in the Stone Age when it comes to the interventional tools available today to treat PE. The standard of care misses the mark. The existing infusion catheters we're using to treat PE leave much to be improved upon. The existing products barely touch the clot. They weren't even designed for the venous system. And most importantly, they leave physicians having to guess how much drug to give each patient. We all know that TPA works to dissolve clot. But every patient is heterogeneous, and they're all different. The problem is, if you don't give enough thrombolytic drug, you don't actually treat the underlying symptoms, which is why, give me 1 sec for my slides here, there we go. If you don't give enough TPA, you don't treat the underlying issue, which is why we see up to 50% of patients develop post-PE syndrome. But on the other end of the spectrum, if you give too much drug, you can risk bleeding complications. At Flow Medical, we believe for a disease killing more than 3 million people every year, these patients deserve more than guesswork. Enter Flow Medical. Our catheter was designed specifically for the pulmonary vasculature with a novel infusion scaffold designed to penetrate clot, and also a smart monitoring system that allows us to tailor medication to each patient by monitoring hemodynamics, bringing precision medicine to MedTech. Let me show you how our device works. This clicker doesn't like me, you guys, so give me a moment. I know it doesn't seem like anybody here. Enter my Vanna White moment. Thank you. As you unsheath the catheter, you see the scaffold expand. There are laser cut holes for your thrombolytic drug to come out. Our product was designed for femoral venous access. The idea is to go to the first proximal clot on each side. We can perform high-pressure pulmonary angiograms through our device, enabling physicians to have precise placement without the need to swap out devices. You then navigate the device through that first proximal clot. It's 1 skew, adjustable in length, so you unsheath it to match the length of that thrombus. That's where you see we're really maximizing surface contact with the clot, so we can dissolve both large central clot as well as send thrombolytic drug downstream. The fiber optic sensor is what enables precision medicine. We track pulmonary artery pressure. Most patients are bilateral, that's why you see right and left, and this gives physicians exactly the information they need to know of when to stop therapy. You can then resheath the device and take it out. To clarify, the devices are placed in the cath lab in about 30 minutes, and then the infusion can be done in the post-op area or in the ICU. Our product is something that enables value for all patients. Today, we see meaningful disparities in outcomes as well as access, where we see Black rural patients with mortality rates 2.5 times those of white urban patients. This is not okay. We also see a broader treatment gap of advanced therapies. When you look at more mature interventional markets like MI, 90% of patients who are eligible for these therapies go to the lab. For pulmonary embolism, it's only 15%. We're seeing a lot of growth in this category in MedTech. We're seeing procedure growth of 20 to 30% year over year, and this has more than doubled. But still, the vast majority of patients receive anticoagulation alone. We know that these catheter-based therapies work, but it isn't going to be until we see RCT data, which will come out in the next 3 to 4 years, that we're going to see a huge inflection point in the use of these therapies, which is why we are so excited to be working on a product today. Our product is one that enables value across all stakeholders. By personalizing medicine to each patient, we can provide the best long-term outcome for each of them, making sure that they receive the right amount of thrombolytic drug. For physicians, it's a shorter procedure with no guesswork. This is also a device that can be used across all hospital settings, rural and urban. It's a 9 French access device with a single SKU. We believe that our product can generate the best outcomes for patients as well as lower readmissions. Our product is a 510K regulatory pathway, but is a 510K plus clinical. To date, we've raised $6.5 million. We've done over a dozen animal studies, and we've taken our product to just about design freeze. You can see it here behind me. We'd love to show it to all of you. In terms of our path forward, we'll start with a first-in-human study, around 10 patients, and then go into a pivotal study that'll be a multi-center, single-arm study of around 110 patients before we submit for our pulmonary embolism indication. Our business model is a disposable catheter as well as a display unit that will be a capital equipment that is provided to the hospital at right around cost. I'd like for all of you to imagine a world where when a patient comes into the ER with shortness of breath, we know exactly what to do, where the clot is, and how much drug to give them. This isn't just another device. This is precision medicine for the sickest of patients, and we hope you join us on our journey. Thank you so much, and have a great time in Chicago this weekend.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Got 7 minutes on the clock, and judges, questions? Dr. Harrington.
So clearly an important problem. I'm curious about your development strategy. And if people will buy it if they don't have randomized clinical trial data comparing it to standard therapy. It sounds like a good story, and doing a single-arm trial is not going to tell you other than you can use your device. So sell me as a hospital administrator on why you shouldn't have to have randomized clinical trial data against standard therapy.
I think we do need randomized controlled trial data in terms of looking at these endovascular therapies versus anticoagulation alone, which is what the vast majority of patients are receiving. Thankfully, the industry is doing that right now. So we see the 2 largest players in this space, Boston Scientific and Inari, doing RCTs, but more importantly, we have an NIH-funded study that's enrolling right now. Those are all studies that are going to read out in the next 3 to 4 years. So as a startup, we think our timing is really good, where we're going to be asking these really big and important questions as an industry, and hopefully right around the time that those RCTs are read out, we will then have a device that we can show is safe and effective.
Sorry, Dr. Schwamm, I zoned out. I apologize.
No worries. Thank you for the presentation. Can you talk a little bit about, I don't want to wander too far into the science talk, but this is basically like a stentriever design, but you don't retrieve the thrombus. You just, it's like a sprinkler system for lytic throughout the clot. Talk a little bit about how to demonstrate the value of that, which I will presumably have to pay more money for this catheter than the catheter I would use today to do an endovascular approach. Like, what is it about the technology that is going to compel me to spend more money on this catheter than the catheter I would have used yesterday to treat the same disease?
Yeah, so there's 2 different current therapeutic approaches for catheter-based therapy to pulmonary embolism right now. One is catheter-directed thrombolysis. We do think our product will be in line in terms of pricing with the leading products in the market and provide more value. Of course, we'll do a pricing study as we get closer to market because this is very dynamic. And then the other option is large bore thrombectomy. So we believe that more patients benefit from catheter-directed thrombolysis because the vast majority of patients do have occlusions in the distal vasculature of the pulmonary arteries. And so large bore thrombectomy devices, the most popular is Inari, it's 24 French. This is something that you're not going to necessarily see being used in rural settings, and it can be a very acute solution to patients that are on that higher risk side. And we think large bore thrombectomy is a very important tool in the toolkit. Inari has a great product. There are many others that are coming out. What we haven't seen yet is a great next generation device for PE thrombolysis, and that's the gap that we're looking to fill.
So you're targeting sort of, instead of the equivalent of large vessel with a saddle embolus, you're targeting more like medium vessel, like distal pulmonary artery occlusion? Is that sort of the...
We're going after intermediate high-risk PE patients, and most of these patients we're going to see will have proximal thrombus burden as well as distal. And so that's where the scaffold is something that can penetrate and dissolve those large proximal clots, but we still have thrombolytic drug that can go downstream to go after the smaller vessels.
Thank you.
Two quick questions. One is technical. If you have a thrombus including a bifurcation, can you retract and reposition, or you use two catheters?
So 90% of patients are going to have bilateral pulmonary embolism, and we think that those patients will need two devices. That's similar to what's being done today. So one catheter placed on each side.
Okay. The second question is, imagine that that is on the market. When can I go to my hospital administration and tell him, please buy me this device?
We hope to be on market in 2028.
Stand. Judges, judges, judges. Okay, well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I don't have enough hands. All right, so judges are going to start to tabulate. I believe you have the opportunity to check over your previous scores. While that's happening, I'd like to invite up my new friend, Allison. Applause, applause, applause.
And then I have the clicker.
Oh, clicker. Yeah,
Thank you. Okay, what do I? Oh, perfect. Thank you. So I'm Allison Roberts. I'm the CEO of Burst Fitness, probably the least medical-related and non-technical founder here. So just preface that. I'm going to be talking about quick burst exercise today. So quick burst exercise, you may have also heard of VILPA, but this is an exercise methodology that has come about in the last few years, and it's really helpful for accessibility and inclusivity. So you don't need to change into workout clothes. This is something that you can do, and we will be doing this in just a few minutes, so brace yourselves. You can do it in whatever you're wearing. It takes 1 minute at a time for a total of 5 minutes a day. And then also it helps to improve mental health and physical health as well. It also helps with primary, secondary, and tertiary prevention of cardiovascular disease. So I would like to reference, again, the European Heart Journal. This is a study that we have based most of our program off of. In this study with 72,000 participants, they found that just 3 to 4 minutes of these quick burst exercises a day will cut your risk of death by cardiovascular disease in almost half, and it'll cut your risk of death by cancer by 40%. And it's incredible that you can have this level of health intervention with just a few minutes a day, and that's the power of micro-behavioral change. When you're able to help people do just a couple things different in their daily schedule, and you can have a big impact, that's much more powerful than maybe saying, like, you'll get a lot of benefit from half an hour, but maybe people don't have the motivation or the self-belief or the will to do that on a consistent basis. And so these are the types of exercises that we have as part of our platform. So we're on Apple and Google Play. We're a mobile app. We have 3 different types of exercise. The first is shake, and this is what we'll be doing today. It mimics shivering. I know what you're thinking, that's bizarre. It mimics shivering because shivering is the body's fastest way to burn calories. When you harness the power of shivering, you can overwhelm your mitochondria, which causes them to grow in size and number. The second part, I'm sorry, my mouth is so dry. The second part is flex. This is the second exercise. And you basically flex different muscle groups as hard as possible for 3 to 5 seconds and then release. This is basically a quick muscle burnout without equipment. And then the third one that we've created is just move. So you take your favorite exercise, do push-ups as fast as you can for a minute, or go sprint down the street 30 seconds that way and 30 seconds this way. making it so stupid simple that anybody can do it. It's also accessible, as I mentioned before. So our oldest customer is 97 years old. We have helped people who are wheelchair bound, who are bed bound, people who have arthritis. I myself, I have a 4-month-old baby at home, and I had a C-section for her. I've been able to do these exercises during my recovery process, and it's helped me a lot. And so I came to this conference. I found out about it 6 weeks ago, and I was so excited to come and talk with you guys because I would love to find out how to help patients with this. I'd love to be able to help get this into clinics, reach the most people, because this is a methodology that a lot of people don't know about, and I'd love to talk with you more. So this is my digital business card, if I can get it to go. So you can scan this QR code, you'll get my contact information, or you can come find me after the demonstration. I would love to talk with you, get your feedback, learn more about what your thoughts are and how I could best approach getting this to the people who need it the most. And now we're gonna do the exercise demo. So, thank you.
Some of you have been sitting for quite a while.
Very kind.
So
Yeah, we're gonna get you on your feet.
I knew we were on target.
Okay, so I would like everybody to stand up. This is a 1-minute exercise, okay? So I want you to stand up, and I want you to jog in place. And I'm actually gonna take this opportunity to take off my trench coat because it's been cold in here, but we're about to get very warm. We're about to increase our energy burn 120 times over baseline. That's a big calorie expenditure. So I'm gonna have you jog in place, okay? So start jogging in place, but then instead of lifting your whole foot off the floor, just lift your heels off the floor like that, okay? Back and forth, back and forth. Now I want you to tense your muscles, okay? We would never train someone to do 20 minutes of bursts ever. It's do it as fast as you can for 1 minute at a time. So you tense your muscles, and then I want you to shake them as fast as you can back and forth. Just a couple inches in either direction. Yeah, you guys are getting into it. I love this. So we're gonna have you tense your muscles, shake it back and forth as fast as you can, and now we're gonna get the music started, and we're gonna do this for 1 minute. Can I have a timer right there? Oh, yeah, just not 10 minutes. Oh, wait. What happened to the music? Can we get the turn back? Keep going. Wait, no, wait. I don't want you to burn yourselves out before we get the music going. I put together Living on a Prayer for you guys. You're already tired. Wait. Maybe a little quieter. All right, ready? On your mark, get set, go! All right, so I want you to tense your muscles, shake them back and forth as fast as you can. Get the timer going. Oh my gosh. All right, so I want you to focus on driving the balls of your feet into the floor, okay? So drive the balls of your feet into the floor and shake your arms back and forth as fast as you can. Okay, now I want you to focus on your arms, okay? Really focus on getting the movement just a couple inches in either direction. You're gonna start feeling this in your deltoids and your biceps, okay? Now I want you to focus on really engaging your core. This is going to help grow your core strength. Core strength. Okay, we're halfway done. Anybody feeling the burn yet? Come on, I know you guys can do better than that. Let's go. Okay, push it. Our music is almost back, I think. Okay, we have 20 seconds left, guys. Push it. I want you to give it everything you got. If you're really feeling up for it, bring your arms up here like this. Okay, come on. 10 seconds left. There we go. Come on, push it. 5 seconds left. Go, 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 go. All right. Give yourselves a hand. Woo. So just really quick tie up for this. I was a national elite athlete in track and cross country when I was younger, and I've been amazed at what this can do for you. So who's feeling a little out of breath? Who's feeling a little winded? Okay. You might also feel a little bit of sweat. That's because of the boost in epinephrine. Your epinephrine and your growth hormone levels are going to be elevated for the next 2 hours, which is going to help with memory retention and acuity. And super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So much, Elsa. You guys are good sports. So that is the conclusion. Thank you so much. We'll see you here again tomorrow at 11 a.m. for part 2, the science pitch. All right? you so much. Thank you, judges. Thank you.
There's something that says your vessel's occluded.
John, well, you gotta take me to the cafe.
Yep.
How is that different? Fragmentation. Dynasty elevation, 150
Oh, Lord. I'm actually tired, though.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Well, we had